Hey everybody, Jane here, and today I'm doing my review of Eliza and Her Monsters by Fransesca Zappia. Um, for those who don't know, this is a young adult book about a girl who is in high school. Her name is Eliza, and she has created this online webcomic, which has gotten really, really big. She meets a boy named Wallace, they start to have a thing, but she doesn't reveal to him that she has created this thing, and he's a big fan of it. Ultimately, her secret gets out and things get crazy. It's the basic plot of this book. I gave it a 4 out of 5. This book really resonated with me, and there was a lot of things I really, really liked about it. I will warn ahead of time, though, that this book does have some trigger warnings for mental illness, particularly anxiety and suicide. So, some of the things I absolutely loved about this. Eliza grapples with so many things that I, as a content creator, also understand. Her identity is very much mixed up in her stories, and she has a really hard time separating herself from it and dealing with being a creator when it's revealed that she is the creator of these comics. One of the things that she really struggles with is continuing to do the work because of the stress of being outed, the fear of failure, the fear of, before she could kind of hide behind her pen name and it wasn't as personalized. And then suddenly it does become personal and she really struggles to create art. And I could really relate to that because as a content creator, you feel like you have all these expectations of your readership, even if your readership is fairly small. And obviously, like, her webcomic is huge compared to what I would ever probably in my life have. So she has like millions and millions and millions of readers worldwide. I have a few readers a month. So obviously, totally, we're in different brackets here. But I did love kind of how she has some concerns and fears about, what if my new stuff sucks? What if I disappoint my fans? And all of those really resonated with me as a creator. I really loved Wallace, her love interest. He was so adorable and so sweet. And I love how both of them kind of lack some social skills. And that made them both really enduring and their relationship quite cutesy. This is a very cutesy book. It doesn't have a lot of like the intensity sometimes that young adult books can have relationship wise. Like it's there, but it's a little bit quieter than say Twilight maybe. I also really loved Eliza's family, particularly her brothers. Her parents also like I as a again just her relationship with them resonated with me. Eliza's parents don't really understand her webcomic. They're not they know she makes it and they're proud of her, but they don't really get it. And I definitely have that feeling in my own life with my own family. My parents, I think they've read, my mom has read a couple of my books. Flat out told me she didn't really care for them. They weren't for her. She's not a romance reader. It's okay. They don't watch my YouTube channel. It just, they know that I write and they know that I YouTube, but it's not something that really comes up in conversation. I don't even know if they know that I blog. And every now and then I have to remind them that I YouTube. Because it's just like they don't recognize it as being as big a part of my life as it is. And I think Eliza's parents are very much the same way. Eliza's parents are very focused on what are you going to do for college? What are you doing in your real life? And treating her webcomic more as like a hobby she does on the side. Maybe she even spends too much time doing it and should be more interested in her real life. And again, I kind of get that because for me, I am so passionate about my writing and about being a writer and a content creator in general. And it's such a huge part of my life. It takes up so much of my time and my thoughts. And for as big of a part of my life as it is, it really plays a very small role in the conversations I have with my parents, who are more interested in things like how's my job going, how are my kids doing. So again, a little bit different because I'm older, and so I have a little more balance in my life than Eliza does. In this book, she is very much focused on her art, and in fairness, when I was a young teen, I was as well. She is 18, although I will say I felt like she read a little bit younger. She seemed to me maybe closer to 15, 16 with her thought process. So kind of an immature, let's just say immature 18. I didn't necessarily feel like she felt really like, at least not like I was at 18. I did understand too and really resonated with her obsession with her art. I started writing fan fiction when I was 14 and had very much the level of her obsession with her creation. I had that in the time to where, I felt like at times Eliza, her art was her whole world and it was the only thing that mattered, and it was kind of the be all end all. And for me, that was also sort of the case. I really used my writing and my art to escape. I had kind of a difficult adolescence, and my art was a way that I could escape. I didn't have the trouble with my parents that Eliza does, as far as like Eliza's parents want her to interact with real people instead of online. I always had active friends. Most of them were writers, and we would write together for fun. So it wasn't kind of some of the issues Eliza has with being really, antisocial. They're so happy when she is bringing Wallace home because she doesn't really have friends in the real world. All of her friends are online, and her parents are kind of older. They don't really understand how real online life is to a teenager. So I do think all of that is an important commentary. And I did like all of that. I thought that was well done. I did like how it deals with anxiety and panic attacks. As somebody who suffers that, I appreciated how it was shown. Hers don't manifest like mine do, but it was interesting to see. I liked it, and it was cool to see the representation there. There were a few things that didn't really jive with me, which is why it's a 4 out of 5 and not a 5 out of 5. One thing that didn't jive with me was we get a lot of her comic to kind of make it us invested in it, I guess, or pictures from it and stories from it, just like that. And here's the thing. I thought the comic was not all that interesting. I was not very invested in it, and I didn't totally get it. It's a fantasy comic. She's got a real cool world, and my understanding is there's this girl who's been taken over by a monster, and she's got to go defeat this other monster, and they're the only two that can take out each other. It was okay, but I wasn't really invested in that world, and I would have liked that maybe to be a little more rich so that I could have been as engaged in it as she was and been get the hype, I guess. I'd have liked to got what the hype was. Also, I don't know how realistic her level of fame was, just because there's so much content on the internet. And even if you're famous in your little circles, you're usually not super famous everywhere. And when Eliza is revealed, there's a heck of a lot of people who know her art. And I just feel like that would be fairly uncommon. You might have your niche audience, but you'd have to be a super big name to have like everybody know. I mean, I've been a part of a lot of fandoms, and unless people are part of that fandom, they don't really know, or they might have heard of it, but it's really casual. Like, she's basically, her world is almost as big as Harry Potter. I mean, like, that's how it seems. Like, everybody knows who she is, what this monsters thing is once it's revealed who she is. So I thought that was a little bit maybe overblown. It probably had to be for the story they were trying to tell. It just, for the work of one artist independently on the internet, I just am not sure. Like, even the authors I know, both online in forums. I mean, there are authors that I talk to in forums who are making 6 figures a year. And if I talk to my reader friends, maybe one of them has heard of these authors. They're not hugely known except to their fans. And that's true even of authors that I love. I know that certain ones, unless they're like really in the public eye, and even then, before I got on BookTube, I'd never heard of half the authors that everybody talks about all the time. And I think if you were in the realm in her webcomic fandom, you would know who she is, but I just felt like they kind of overdid the size of her fame in this book a little bit. That's a minor complaint, but it is worth mentioning just because I feel like they really blew it up. The last thing that didn't jive well with me is kind of a spoiler. So I'm going to go ahead and put my hand up here, and I'll take it down when I'm done with this particular spoiler. So if you want to skip ahead, when my hand comes down, that means I'm done spoiling here. After Eliza is revealed as being the creator, she contemplates suicide. And I didn't love how that was handled. Particularly, she thinks about it, then she, is about to go do it, kind of has second thoughts. Wallace shows up, and she's like, oh, I didn't realize how hurtful and terrible it would be for Wallace. And I felt like we have to be really careful, especially since this is a teen book, about how we look at things. Like, it almost felt like a little bit of that he saved her. Like, it didn't, but a little bit. Enough that I was uncomfortable with it. And particularly, like, he would have felt like it was his fault because they just had a fight and all this other stuff. And especially with teens, it is really important to recognize that if somebody commits suicide, it's not about you, it's about them. It is about them and their choices. And you can have a breakup. You can decide you don't want to be with that person. You can be angry at that person. And if they commit suicide, that's not your fault. And I just didn't love how that aspect was dealt with in the story. I would have liked it a lot more if Wallace had never shown up in that discussion. I did, on the other hand, really like her therapist, though. Eliza sees a therapist. And one of the things Eliza's therapist says that I thought was really smart and good, and something that everybody needs to think about, is it is not our job to make anybody else happy. It is not our job to help anybody else follow their dreams. Like, if we can do it, that's fine. That's great. But we can't put other people's lives on us. And so she does bring that point up, but I felt like it was almost like, okay, she brought that up, but then also we have the scene with Wallace, and maybe that wasn't a great scene to have when you also just said the right thing, which is we can't be responsible for anybody else's happiness. So that was another thing I wasn't nuts about. Okay, so overall, I did really enjoy this book. I think if you are a content creator, you will really understand a lot of what Eliza goes through, and you'll really enjoy the book. So I do recommend it, especially if you are a writer, an artist, a creative. I think you will really jive with a lot of things that Eliza goes through. It did take me a while to get into the book, but once I was in, I was really invested. It is a little bit angsty and a little bit young because that is the audience, but overall, I had a good time with it. I would recommend. All right, guys, this has been Jane. Have you read Eliza and Her Monsters? What did you think? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Any other good book recommendations on similar stories of content creators, stories of web designers, writers, anything like that? I love reading stories about other creatives and the difficulties and trials they go through. If you'd like to connect with me outside of YouTube, my social media is below. Also, for more content, hit the like and subscribe button. All right, guys, this has been Jane. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.